Good evening. Good evening. My friends, it is with a lot of joy that I find myself in this home, in this point of light, in order to share experiences, to chat about the Spiritist Doctrine, the good news, the good tidings. After all, a good news always is given with joy. And so, we give you our heartfelt affection and hugs. Let's talk about Allan Kardec and 160 years of Spiritism. This is a very special year. We're celebrating 160 years of Allan Kardec, of Spiritism. I wanted to begin by telling you the following. I remember when I first came across the Spiritist Doctrine in my country of Peru. There still didn't exist a single Spiritist center there. I began to study about the works of Allan Kardec, and I remember at the time, I was very, very young. When I would read his works, I would see it like he was kind of a superhero. I would imagine like looking, researching. I thought it was great. Upon reading so much and researching and discovering so many of the Spiritist books, I recall that my mother told me, "My son, what would happen if you discover that everything here that you're reading was false?" And I said, "Mom, what do you mean? Imagine, what if you found out that everything is a lie?" "But Mom, that's not possible because he's a French professor from Sorbonne who know many languages, and he was an eminent scholar." Yeah, but even then, and what if all of this was a lie? Because there were many other scientists that studied with him and everything. Yeah, but even then, what if they researched everything that they found was a lie? And I remember my friends, that my faith at that moment plunged all the way down. I said, "Oh my God, what now? What if everything was a lie?" And so I remember that I read a sentence by Kardec which said, "If at any moment you discover one point in the Spiritist Doctrine that science is saying otherwise, you stick to science and abandon this point and abandon the doctrine." So I told that to my mom. "Mom, look how cool." And my mom said, "How are you going to prove that?" "Well, if it's science, it needs to be proved." So I went to the Medium's book and Spirit's book, and I said, for instance, it says that all of us are spirits. So far so good? Are we all spirits, right? We have a body. When we lie down in bed, when we sleep, we leave our body. So far so good? Sometimes some sleep during the lectures, but I'm talking about dreams, sleeping at night, leaving the body, yeah? And so I told my mom, "Listen, if you sleep and you leave your body, and I sleep and I leave my body, we can meet in the spirit realm." So far so good? Okay, great. If that's real, then let's prove it. Well, so how do we do that? I said, "It's easy. You sleep, and if you dream, tell me what you dreamt, and I'll say the same thing, what I dreamt." So we scheduled. What's the problem? My mom would say sometimes, I dreamt with you. And I would say, I don't remember. And then I would say, Mom, I dreamt with you. And she said, well, I don't remember. I'm like, man, this is hard. Until one moment, she's like, I remember something. All right, let's do the following. Each person takes a piece of paper, a pen. The minute we wake up, we write everything down that we dreamt. Okay? Write it down. Then we won't forget. But even then, things were not coinciding. They were matching. Until one time, I remember, it was like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. I dreamt. I had a dream that I was in a house that I used to live in 5 years ago. And in this house, there was a kitchen, the dining room table, and my mom was sitting there. And I entered the door, you know, the pocket door that opens, the sliding door, that kind of door, the Old West door. So the door was like that. So I entered through the door, would talk to my mom, and then 2 next door neighbors would come through the door, would talk to me, and then I would leave with them. So when I would leave with them, I would wake up. It's like, wow, this was a very vivid dream. And I said, I'm going to write it down. I'm going to tell my mom right now. So I went and woke her up in the middle of the night, shook her, Mom, wake up. She's like, what's going on? Mom, I just had this dream. What did you dream? She's like, oh, I dreamt with you. Okay, and what happened? I dreamt that we, in that house that we were 5 years ago. Well, and then where were you? She was like, I was sitting in that dining room kitchen table. I said, what about me? She's like, you'd come in through the door, the sliding door. I was like, yeah. And then you talked to me. And then what? There were 2 neighbors. They came through the door, and then they talked to me, and then you left with them. I said, Mom, there you go. Here we go. It's true. Spiritism is not a lie. It's not a belief. So my faith went back up. Because I wasn't just believing on something somebody told me or it could be. You have proof. You have a way of checking the information that you read and from another continent, but these are real facts on principles that are real. So I was so happy. I said, Mom, let's do a checklist on the WhatsApp checklist, like in the WhatsApp style, point by point. We can prove, let's go point by point. She go, what else? Okay, let's do a mediumistic meeting. Is 1 year enough? Okay, so we started gathering a mediumistic group, paper, a lot of paper, because the papers don't save on paper. In the beginning, you start to channel. If you're a medium with 15 minutes, they don't save on paper. All right, let's do it. So we started doing it. It's amazing. So I remember that there was a friend of mine who used to do mediumistic meetings. We're not spiritist, but mediumistic meetings and meditations. And he called me. He said, Luis, join me. We're doing some meditations here. So I went. It was a bit different. It was like a room. People would lie down on a sofa. Many people. And he would direct the meditation, guide. Look at this, look at that. Right. So I was there lying down. And in the end, he would say, now, let's come back. Because I was a boy, a little kid. Slowly, let's open our eyes. I opened my eyes directly. Nothing slowly. When I opened my eyes, I remember from the ceiling, these petals of flowers were starting to fall. I don't know if you can imagine, like petals of flowers, like spiraling down. And people were lying down, still with their eyes closed. And these petals were coming down. And when it would touch us, when they were lying down, when it would touch a person, their nose or their face, they would do that. That's my version, of course. But it reminds me of the little bell, Tinker Bell from Disney. Doesn't she do that? It was just like that. It would touch and make the little noise. So I would look at that, and people would open their eyes, and nobody was seeing. Nobody's seeing this. So I commented, look at what I'm seeing. Can you see the petals of flowers? Blah, blah. So she said, look, it's so interesting you say that, because I'm reading a book right now where there's a Brazilian medium, and this medium narrates, a spirit talks through him, and when the spirits go to places that are prayers, meditations, they give passes, and sometimes flowers are materialized. I was like, wow, what book is that? He said, who's this medium? This medium is this guy named Chico Xavier. Who? And who's the spirit? Oh, André Luiz. That was the very first time that I heard of Chico Xavier, André Luiz. Wow, great. So we began to check not what we had researched in Kardec, but also the phenomena that we didn't really know at the time, but were written in the book by our dear Chico. Okay, so let's begin. Now, 160 years.
Well, we have here, my dear friends, the 15 principles of Spiritism. All of the Spiritist Doctrine in one graph. One graphic. From the right side, we have the principles of God. On the left side, we have the principles of immortality of the soul. These small circles are the ones that Emmanuel transferred over through Chico. And our work was to create this diagram. To the right, we have God, elements of the universe, the laws of the universe, action of the spirits of nature. On the left side, we have the immortality of the soul, spirit, perispirit, and spiritual influence. Inhabited world, spiritual world, mediumship. I told them to go a little too fast. And in the middle we have reincarnation. The base of everything. At the base of everything is the gospel of Jesus. So we have here a big synopsis, a summary of Spiritism. Okay, everybody good? Let's go. We're going to go to the book On the Way to the Light. In the first chapters, where the Spirit of Emmanuel tells us that the team of Christ and the year zero, this is six centuries before Christ and 6 centuries after Christ, is a period of about 1200 years in which the forces of light implemented the gospel in our planet. Everything good? Right after comes a new period, which is the darkness or the apocalypse, apocalyptic beast. Before this moment, the forces of light sent messengers. Europe. Okay, you guys following? Asia. Emmanuel tells us that the most enlightened spirit has ever stepped on earth in the East was Socrates. Together with him, Aristotle, Plato, Alexander,
he reads the thoughts to the known world. In the middle, in the east, we have Lao Tzu, Confucius, and Buddha. All of this is a preview for the upcoming gospel that's coming to the earth. And sometimes we think that they're just contradictory doctrines, but all comes from the same source: Taoism, Confucianism, Buddhism, the Socratic and Platonic doctrines. So far, so good. Let's go. Now we have a timeline below. This period of the darkness in the middle, I did a lecture in the city of Santos in Brazil, and I said, Earth has entered a period of darkness. And one lady said, "Oh my God." And I said, "But it's already over, it's gone." And she went, 600 BC, AD, 600 AD to 1270 AD, 12 centuries. And in the middle of this moment, these are the these three centuries were the apex of the darkness: the Inquisition, Crusades, and plagues. And all of this, the biggest perversity was actually done on the name of the light, invoking the light. But during this period, Christ sends 3 messengers in 3 different moments. He never leaves us abandoned or orphans. The first one, a being that was most closely resembled to Jesus, his most loved disciple, John the Evangelist, or Francis of Assisi, the reincarnation of John the Evangelist, 1,000 years after the coming of Christ. Roughly 4 or 5 centuries later, Martin Luther, alongside bringing the Protestant Reformation along with him. And then almost in the end of this dark period, another disciple, Allan Kardec. Let's see here this moment. The Consoler. This is a great moment. Cool moment. And around the 1800s in France, let's travel in time. December 31st of the year 1799. Yeah? It's almost the turning of the year. Is it New Year's Eve? And the turn of the century. What happens? This book called Letters and Chronics by the spirit author Humberto de Campos, through the mediumship of Chico Xavier. He was a journalist. He tells us what happened in this day of December 31st for Spiritism. On that eve, around 1 o'clock in the morning, between the turn of the centuries, there's a gigantic meeting that takes place in the spirit realm, which all the spirit guides of the planet are assembled from India, from South Africa, from Americas, from Oceania. The old druid sorcerers and priests, all of them come for a divine meeting. There's a great light that invites all of them for this meeting. I imagine myself, what a fantastic thing must be this moment, right? All the guides of the planet assembled under one command. And in this moment, as this meeting is taking place, many spirits that are on earth, incarnated, they leave their bodies at night when they sleep, and many of them attend this meeting. One of them is going to be this short man, Napoleon. Humberto de Campos tells us that when Napoleon is outside his body, outside his little body, he leaves his body goes to the spirit world, and he enters this assembly, and he observes this gigantic gathering, all of humanity's guides, all there. And as he enters, and there are many levels. In the first level are the guides. There's a greater level which he's not able to perceive. It's too much light. And then there's some lower levels where there are many spirits who were on earth and had important roles throughout history. For example, he tells us that Marie Antoinette, the one whose head was cut off, she was there. She was the Queen of France. Louis XVI, also other incarnates, and all those others who had recently disincarnated. Pestalozzi, many important personalities in France. The Pope at the time, who was incarnated but was outside his body. All of them were in this gathering place. But the main attention was on Napoleon. And as Napoleon would enter and would look startled everywhere, from the top of the sky, it was as if, I'm like imagining, it was as if, he tells us in the book, those trumpets, those divine trumpets, you can hear an amazing chorus and a voice. No one could see it, but a voice would say, Caesar, Caesar, Julius Caesar, the greatest emperor of Rome, Caesar. Just like 2,000 years ago, we called you to unite the peoples of Europe, and with your pride, failed. Once again we call you, Caesar, to unite all of Europe. And don't make the same mistakes you made in the past. When you won your battles, you had military talents, but we were also supporting you because the project was that Latin would be the main language, so that when the gospel would arrive in the Roman Empire, the Latin language would make it widespread throughout Europe. So now once again we call you Caesar because one of my disciples is going to reincarnate in the planet, and you need to make way for him. And tells us that a being filled with light appeared with a glowing tiara crown. And this being of light approached him in front of Napoleon, and it was Jan Hus. Who was Jan Hus? He was a precursor of the Protestant Reformation. He was a priest of Czechoslovakia. It doesn't even exist anymore, right? Czech Republic. And he translated the Bible to the Czech language. And all the masses, he no longer did them in Latin, but he started to conduct the masses in Czech. And so he was audacious to do that. And because of that, he was burned at the stake. Wow, we have evolved, huh? Okay. So this being of light was Jan Hus, who was approaching a Napoleon at that moment, and the voice would tell him, you will pave the way for my disciple. Jan Hus and Napoleon are facing each other, and Humberto de Campos tells us in the book that Jan Hus conducts him back to Paris carrying him back to his bedroom. It must be easy to carry him like a small guy. Oh my God. He takes Napoleon to the room and leaves him in his bedroom. And at that moment, Napoleon wakes up, and the next morning, says, "Oh my God, what a dream I had." And he says, "I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to establish the Napoleonic states." Oh my God. Will he succeed, or will his pride get in the way again? But that was the project. In 1800, 2 centuries later, we finally have the European Union. This project was supposed to be 2 centuries ago. But sometimes we take a little longer in fulfilling things. Okay. In the meantime, the Spirit of Truth. So 4 years after that, Jean Hus, the Spirit, reincarnates in the city of Lyon, and he's going to be known as Allan Kardec. Meanwhile, the forces of light begin to call from all points in the planet very illuminated beings in many sectors and fields in sciences: Galileo, Pascal, Benjamin Franklin, here from the United States, Socrates, Rousseau. In politics, we have Louis IX, John the Evangelist, who's Francis of Assisi, Joan of Arc, Vincent of Paul, Saint Augustine. Great beings are called to compose, to make up the staff of the Spirit of Truth. The Spirit's book comes, but here I want to say a detail of the Gospel according to Spiritism, because Kardec's educational pedagogy is sensational. The first chapters of the Gospel according to Spiritism are teachings with God. The middle ones are about the fellow man, and the last ones with ourselves. There is an educational proposal for the studying of the Gospel according to Spiritism. And what's amazing, there's something that I think to myself. Here in the West, we only remember of Jesus in 2 moments: Christmas and Holy Week. But in Christmas time, we remember the presents, at the most, the manger, the Christmas tree, and the old man, bearded, wearing a red coat. And in Holy Week, we remember how Christ died, and then the little... Is there the traditions of the Easter eggs? Yeah, so. But we almost don't recall what Jesus taught. In no moment. But only how he died and how he was born. But what did he teach? People barely know. So the Gospel's purpose is to teach that. Remove the miracles, remove the predictions, remove the complicated words, stick only to the moral teachings. That's what matters. Isn't that cool? So now we have, beyond the philosophical and scientific parts, we have the exclusively moral aspect. It doesn't matter if you went to Egypt, if you went to India, if you had brothers or sisters. What matters is the moral teachings. Okay. The 3 revelations. So we have, in summary, the first revelation, the 10 Commandments by Moses. Don't kill, don't. It was the moment. The 10 Beatitudes. Yes, meek. Yes, peacemaker. Yes, charitable. Yes, noble. And the items of Spiritism. which are all one and the same. These are codes for a great life in society. The essence of God, immortality of the soul. These are all Spiritist principles. So the dancing tables, or the turning tables, we finally have arrived at the moment. Kardec begins his research. My son asked me, Dad, how were those turning tables? So we brought a little model. It would have a base and 3 legs. And say paws, I confuse that in Portuguese. 3 legs. In 2 of the legs, they would raise, and with another, they would bang. So for the letter A, the leg would hit once, twice for B, C, D. And then my son was like, Dad, but what if the spirit wanted to say Xuxa, Xuxa? The questions he asked me. Well, it's gonna take forever. Okay. Then soon after that, a little box was created with wheels, with a pencil or a pen, and in the middle, the mediums would place their fingers and they would begin to write the first spirit communications. So Kardec noticed that if you take a piece of wood, then you don't even need it. Just take the pen directly. So the first psychographies or automatic writings in Spiritism began. Another detail. This gentleman here is Mr. Pestalozzi. Yes? Everyone know him? Pestalozzi created in a castle in Switzerland a method. He's the father of the new school of education. That education could not only be instruction, but it needed to be the education of the soul, of values, so that you can have men and women not just with knowledge, but with moral values in the heart. In that way, the humanity could have good citizens. Yes? If the main disciples, one of his students was the little boy named Hippolyte, who, after becoming an adult, would become Allan Kardec. And there's a detail here. When Kardec, I'm not sure which one of these boys, when he turns 21, he comes back to Paris, and there he establishes a school that is exactly in the format of Pestalozzi. And then you're going to ask me, Luis, what does that have to do with anything? Because it was Pestalozzi who was part of those spirits who were called to that meeting in the spirit realm. Remember that meeting we talked about in the spirit world? Pestalozzi was part of the staff of the Spirit of Truth. So he was getting ready to be a mentor of Kardec. Later on, Kardec soon launches this library. In it, he publishes the Spirit's book. It was in the most famous library in France. Now remember, France at the time was the most cultural in the world. Here Victor Hugo published his books, and many great authors, Alexandre Dumas. When Kardec finally passes away, something is creating. Oh, it's a Druid piece of rock from the Druid architecture. They create that when he passes away. Why? Because when Allan Kardec goes to publish his first book, the spirits tell him that he should adopt a name different than his original name. His biological name was Hippolyte, had already written many books. He had translated the Bible to German. He had written books on arithmetic, geometry. He was a professor at Sorbonne University, so he was very well known, published author. So the spirits recommend not to use his own name, but adopt the name Allan Kardec. It was the name of his own spirit in a previous lifetime when he lived as a druid. He was a priest of the Celtic culture, a little bit before the time of Christ. And so he was a druid priest. And that's why his tombstone has this format. Right here on top, there's a sentence. To be born, to die, to be reborn, and to progress always. That is the law. This sentence was actually a sentence borrowed by the Druids, and we know it in Spiritism. Yes? A small detail. In France, they didn't consider Kardec the way we study him. They think Kardec as a mystic. I had the opportunity to go to this cemetery, which is called Père Lachaise. If you ever go to Paris, or if you've been, don't miss it. I told this to my son. If we ever go to France, let's go to Père Lachaise Cemetery. And my dad said, "Are you crazy, Dad? I'm going to go to France to go to a cemetery?" It's because this cemetery is actually a tourist attraction. It's like a museum in open air. And the most visited tombstone in that cemetery is actually Allan Kardec's. And what's the detail here? It's interesting because that's his bust. No, not bust. It's his a statue. And nearby there's a walking trail, like where people go jogging through the cemetery. It's pretty cool. So when they stop in front of Kardec's statue, the French people they put on their hands there, and they keep on running because they consider him to be a mystic. It put so much his hand on that statue that it's been worn out. And there are many flowers. And we saw a lady carrying so many flowers, and I'm saying, why are you placing flowers? She was not Spiritist. It so happens that her mother, at some point, made a wish to Kardec, and the wish came true. So the way she wanted to thank was to give flowers. So the daughter carried that tradition. Isn't that great? Okay. Allan Kardec and Napoleon. Julius Caesar, Napoleon, Alexander Magnum, or Alexander the Great, who brought the thinking of the Greeks and Socrates, brought it to the Western world. The same spirit who brought the gospel was once again called to disseminate the Latin language, and once again called to unite Europe for the coming of Kardec, the project of Christ. Now Kardec, who was a druid, was Jan Hus in a previous life, had already met with each other. Here, Napoleon, Kardec, he was the emperor. Kardec was being born, reincarnating. Here, Julius Caesar is invading. And here, Allan Kardec, a druid, was there living in that moment during Julius Caesar's reign when he was invading the Gaelic territories. Gaelic, French Gaelic is the redundancy. Okay. What's the detail that I want to tell you with this illustration? It's because we have friends who also reincarnate together. That's the beautiful thing, the Spiritist Doctrine. With the mediumistic revelations. Let's talk about two friends. When Julius Caesar is invading the Gallic territories, with history you can tell he had invaded Spain, Portugal, conquered all this whole area with the Roman Empire, all prepared, ready with weapons. But there was an army that was very tough for them to conquer. Was the Gaul, the army of Gaul, which was being commanded by that person. He was the the Gallic captain. This person will later be known from the inspiration of this person, the character of Asterix, or Asterix and Obelix, cartoon characters. Those cartoon characters are based on a real character. So when the Roman army begins to fight, once they're finally able to conquer the Gallic territories, he becomes so impressed how this man with such a small army was able to match the might of the Roman army. And so when he finally captures him, Julius Caesar does not kill him. He admires his rival and takes him as a prisoner back to Rome. So he captures him. He takes him all the way to Rome, where his family, him and his family, will remain for 30 years, and then after that he will set them free. And people say, wow, what a merciful emperor, he didn't kill his rival. And so, what happens later? When Napoleon is invading all of Europe and vanquishing easily, when he comes to Egypt, his army marches into Egypt. They fall into a trap, and he's about to die. But there was a certain general named Louis Charles Antoine. This was going to be the main general. He comes to Napoleon's aid, rescues him, and offers his own life in order to set him free. He sacrifices himself for Napoleon. This man, Antoine, was the reincarnation of the previous commander, the old rival. He's now the main general of Napoleon. And I think to myself, how this is so incredible, because both of them in that historic moment once again meet, of course being called by Christ in this new project of the unification of Europe. But much later, there's another friend that comes. And when Kardec reincarnates, let's remember that Kardec used to be the spirit of Jan Hus. Jan Hus, let's put the Czech Republic here, where he was born at that time. Somewhere there. When Jan Hus is reincarnated at the time, the spirit he looks after a person that he admires a lot, which is John Wakefield, who had translated the Bible to English, John Radcliffe. So he then translates the Bible to Czech. And he had great admiration and respect and affection for John Radcliffe. Those two are considered the pre-reformists. Before the time of Luther, they were considered the pre-reformers. What happens later? John Wakefield is going to reincarnate later and will be known as Leon Denis. He's a great philosopher of Spiritism who continues the work of Allan Kardec. Isn't that so interesting? So how in certain moments friends are called to come together in different moments in history. Okay, this is the timeline of Spiritism. Okay. So the first meeting of the spirits about the formation of the planets. Second meeting of the spirits, pure spirits. Oh, okay. Materializing the planet Earth and establishing the coming of Jesus to our planet. The first races begin, the basic races of Earth. 24,000 years later, planet Earth leaves its primitive stage and enters its planet of trials and expiations phase. At that moment, we have the 4 spirit races from the Capella system, the Indo-European family, the castes of India, the people of Israel, and the Egyptian civilizations. Fast forward to 1300 before Christ, the first great revelation with Moses, the second revelation with Christ. In the year 1500 AD, Brazil is called to be called the heart of the world, and the United States to be called the brain of the world. Now my son asked me, "Dad, I wanted to be born in the brain." I said, "Son, rejoice, you were born in the heart." Okay. So 1848, the phenomena of Hydesville and of the Fox sisters begins here in the United States, right here in New York State. 2 years later in France, the turning tables phenomena takes place, and in 1857, Kardec begins to compile the Spiritist Revelation. I say the revelation begins because the difference is the revelation here is of a progressive nature. He does not say everything. It's just the beginning of the revelation. Just like any science. Astronomy didn't start with Galileo. Well, it started with Galileo, but it never finished with Galileo. Medicine began with Hippocrates, but never ended with him. So Spiritism begins the research, the study with Kardec. But then new revelations come, and it will be like that constantly. But the principles were brought in this moment. Okay, my friends. I said very fast. A little fast. Chico Xavier, the Brazilian medium, in a TV show called Dripping Fire, he tells the following. Our planet has been undergoing expiations and trials, but he says that the first glimpses of a world of regeneration will begin to take place 200 years after the Spirit's Book's publication, or around 2057, or 40 years from today. Who is still incarnated? I hope to still be incarnated at the time, to see the first glimpses, and then okay, I can go. But if not, in the next reincarnation. But Chico said that the first glimpses of the world of regeneration would happen at around 2057. And then a whole other period would unfold. We are now living through these great changes, these great transitions, and thinking to ourselves in this moment, this such a peculiar moment, that we began to create some projects that are geared mainly to the new generations, children's, because there are many spirits that are coming to incarnate as spiritists for the second time, and they're choosing homes or uncle where their uncles or grandparents or cousins or somebody who can bring spiritism close to them. And so if we had some goggles, we could look at many spirits telling, oh, you're going to be my uncle, you're going to be my grandmother. That'd be great. Spirits would here be choosing where they want to arrive. So we begin to put together a few of those materials that I wanted to show you. So for this moment that we're going through. This one, for example.
We were able to, together with some friends of the Warner Brothers, I think I told you something about this last year, didn't I? Well, now it's materialized. We were able to get together with the Warner Brothers, the biggest entertainment company in the world, authorization to use the characters of Scooby-Doo. And we were able to do the first book with the crew of Scooby-Doo. Hot Dog. Shaggy. I don't remember the names of the characters. The team of Scooby-Doo. In our fiction, they're going to visit the Fox sisters, where the first spiritual mediumistic phenomena began. And Scooby-Doo and Shaggy will go and sleep in the bedroom of the Fox sisters. And they hear the rappings and all the phenomena. And in this work, we were able to get approval of the Warner Brothers, brothers and sisters, for a future book that will be ready at the end of the book, talking about the world of regeneration and the primitive world, with the Flintstones and the who? Jetsons? Jetsons. And very recently we've launched the book of the crew of Monica with Chico Xavier, the dearest, most beloved characters with the Brazilian kids, with the greatest Brazilian of all time. And the small details that inside there is a drawing of Emmanuel made by Mauricio de Souza. How wonderful. And I didn't have the opportunity to meet Chico Xavier in life. I went to Brazil. Chico was still alive, but I didn't get a chance to meet him. And last year, we went to Uberaba, the city where he lived, and we recorded with the son of Chico Xavier, people that lived with him, his barber, his neighbors. We recorded from them the greatest 25 stories of Chico Xavier. Some are well known. Some are known as his fear of flight. The airplane. He had a big fear of flying, and we talked. That's one of our stories, amongst others. And there are some that are unknown. I'm going to tell you guys one of them. Can I tell you one? One story that they told me. Have you guys heard of the story of the cat of Chico Xavier that used to bite his hand? Have you heard of this story? No? Okay, so I'm going to tell you the story quick. They say that Chico used to psychograph until late hours of the evening. And there was a cat called Pancho. And the cat, in the middle of the night, would go up to his table, and as Chico's psychographing, the cat would come and bite his hand. This is my version of the story, okay, guys? And it would bite Chico's hand, and the people would say, "Look, the terrible cat, he's getting in the way of Chico's work." And Chico would say, "No. Pay pay close attention. The cat, with his vision, he's perceiving the spiritual friends. So he's coming up to the table because with his glove, he wants to tell me something. Chico, you're not a machine, Chico. You need to rest too. Your body needs to rest, Chico. Just so it was the love of the cat towards Chico that was protecting him. And so I thought this is so beautiful because the simplest gestures with how Chico Xavier would extract huge lessons out of them. Because to our eyes it was just a little annoying cat. So, my dear friends, to finalize, as my companion said, I have about another 5 minutes. I'm going to tell you a story to show you how wonderful the Spiritist Doctrine is. This happened to me 2 years ago. I had a dream. And in this dream, it went like this. I was in that house that I told you in the beginning of the lecture today. I was in that house. And this house has some stairs. And up on top, upstairs, there was a family that lived there. And there was a friend of mine that was like me, who was an only child. And he used to live upstairs. But I didn't dream with my friend. I had, at this time, about 12 years of age. So it was about 40. So it was 25 or 26 years that we have not seen each other. But I did not dream of my friend. I dreamed of his mother. I had a dream that she came down the stairs running, all desperate. And she would take me by the collar, and she would hold me like this close to my face, and she would say, Luis, tell my son that I love him, that for him not to kill himself, suicide isn't the way. And he would come this close to my face and she would tell me that, and I could feel, and I could feel her this close to me. Her spit. I could feel her spit to my face. No, it's funny, but it's true. I'd feel it. And I did like this so to wipe it off. And then I saw, I was like, by the time I saw, I was awake. And my heart was beating really fast. And I was like, I was feeling like my throat, like, what was that? What kind of dream was this? And I said, what do I do? My God. Because I thought this dream was very vivid. And I said, okay, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to try talking to this friend. And this is what happened. But I had no contact with him. For 25 or 26 years, I had no contact with him. So I went on Facebook. I remembered his name. And I went and searched for him. And there was a lot of people under his name. I was like, which one could it be? And I'm looking, and I saw one. I think it's this one. Clicked. Hours later, he accepted me as a friend. And he says to me, hi Luis, how's it going? And I said, hey, hi so-and-so, how's it going? How are you doing? He goes, oh, I'm really well, I'm doing great. How about you? Oh, I'm good too. But are you okay? Yeah, everything's wonderful. Oh my God. What am I going to do now? Oh, everything's good, really? Yeah, everything's great, everything's wonderful. Oh my God, now what am I going to do? Should I tell him or not tell him? But since I've lived so many things, I said, you know what, I'm going to tell him. And I said, how did you remember him? You know what happened, Luis? I had a dream. I had a dream with your mother. Luis told him. I saw your mother coming down the stairs, and she was screaming at me, and she said she loved you, and she said for you not to kill yourself, that you don't commit suicide because it's not the way. And he says to me, Luis, I don't believe in this stuff. I'm an atheist. Dreams, I don't believe in any of that. But there's a detail. My mother died a week ago. Oh, wow, that's interesting. And he said, where are you? I'm in Brazil. For about 16, 17 years I've been living in Brazil. How about you? Where are you living? I'm in Australia. I said, wow, in Australia? Yeah, I've been living in Australia for 8 years. He's in the opposite side of the world. Okay, well, great. Then that's all I wanted to tell you. I turned off the communication and I said to myself, wow, what was that all about? And 1 week later, he writes to me. He saw me online. He says to me, hi, Luis, are you there? I said, hey, so-and-so, I'm here. How you doing? He says, I need to talk to you, Luis. What happened? Luis, let me tell you something. We haven't seen each other 25 years. I'm in Australia. You're in Brazil. Complete opposing sides of the world. We have no contact whatsoever. Right? Right. But something happened, and this is what happened. I'm an only child. My mother died. I have no more family. At the same time, my wife left me for another man and took my daughter with them. I got into a lot of trouble. I lost my job. I got into huge debt. Now I'm all alone in Australia. No wife, no daughter, no mother, no job. Things are bad. And I said, tomorrow I'm going to take my life. And I planned everything. Everything was completely prepared so that I'd take my life the next day. But on that night, I received an invite on Facebook. And I said, oh, okay, I have nothing to lose, so I accepted it. And you come to tell me that my mother, that has passed away for about a week now, that she came to tell you, to ask me not to kill myself because she loves me. How is that possible, Luis? How? Because I don't believe in anything, and it's just something that only I knew. I had planned everything. Only I knew. How would you, on the opposite side of the world, out of all people, would come and tell me, please, what was that? And I said, since your heart has opened, I will tell you a fantastic thing, the Spiritist Doctrine. And then I told him, and we talked 2-3 hours talking, the doctrine, life after death. And I remember when Chico Xavier said that love of the mother and a strong prayer of her mother makes the heavens shake. It was the opposite sides of the world, both sides, the other plane of life. The mother worried about the son. And I thought about, how would this happen in the spiritual realm? Is it possible that the mother asked the spirit guides to look for a medium to send him a message, and everybody's busy, and then they chose the worst one possible? That would be me. And then she came to my face. But we have to send this message. And it was a good idea. I sent him links and books so that he would read and he would know more about the doctrine. Didn't force anything. I left him up to his will. I saw that he was online. I was like, okay, he's still online. Okay, all right. 2 years later, last month, he tells me, Luis, how's it going? I said, good, everything's good. How you doing? All right, good. I said, how you doing? He says, Luis, let me tell you something. My wife came back to me with my child. That's wonderful. And there is more. I got a job again. I paid off my debt. And what's even better, you have no idea what I'm working with. No. And what? In a non-profit organization that helps prevent suicide in Australia. And I said, wow, that's wonderful. Look how much the spirit friends, the friends of light, can reach the hearts. So, my dear friends, I want to tell you today, 160 years of Spiritism. We celebrate with so much joy. 160 years of Allan Kardec. 160 years that life died, that death died. 160 years of only life. And this is a wonderful and the greatest blessing of the Spiritist Doctrine, all joyful, incarnate, discarnate. Congratulations to all of us, 160 years of light to the planet. Thank you so much.